Okay, so we've got these two pieces here that we're wanting to support in the asiga, in Matrix version 9, and then export to the asiga composer software so we can create a build. Now the first thing I noticed with these is you've got a couple of remnants here. You've got this one here and here. We need to delete those. That's really important. You don't want little floaters hanging around building away, because that could damage your tray, and it's also not very good for the printing of the piece. It can cause issues as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this piece here, and we're just going to hide that. We'll do that one later on. This one here, we're going to delete this sprue because we don't need it. We'll create a sprue with the Matrix 3D printing tools. So we're going to grab this. Actually, the first thing I'll do is go into the through finger viewport. I'm going to bring out a finger size. Size L should be fine, and we'll grab these guys here, pop them all onto the green layer color so they're all where they should be. Just turn these on so that's all out. Okay, so we'll bring that down there. Doesn't really matter. I've just got the ring rail out there just so I can put this back into its original place. There's no reason for you to move things away, particularly a shank, away from where it was created, particularly if you're using these next few tools. Now we don't need the ring rail here, we can get rid of that now. I just had that there for reference. What I am going to do is I'm going to go into the blue tools menu and select the tool called 3D printing. Now what that's going to do is going to give me a row of tools that we can use here to create supports. This is in Matrix version 9, which is all good. So we can select everything here, and we're going to use the very first tool here called Show Support Regions. Now in the toolbar up the top here, or the command line, you've got Support Region Analysis options. The very first thing we want to select is Add Object. When we click on that, it's going to shade it to a grey, and then when we have a look in the perspective viewport, anything that's red is indicating that it needs to be supported. Now these claws here typically don't need to be. They're usually pretty well okay with that because they're attached to the shank. Generally speaking, they're going to grow okay. It's pretty rare that you need to support those. If you do, it's pretty easy to do. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to grab our shank, everything there, and we're going to select an option here called Ring Support Sprue. So when we click on that, it's going to automatically generate a support sprue here for us. Now this sprue here can be used in the casting process. There's no need for you to create a sprue or a cylinder coming off here. This is actually going to be a better sprue for you because it allows for more metal flow into the piece rather than a cylinder where the metal's just got to come in, hit the wall here, and then kind of turbulate around. That can cause things like porosity and all kinds of bad stuff. So this option here is far better for a sprue, particularly for a ring. Now a few options that we've got up in the command line here. We've got the option to change the top width, the bottom width, the height, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to change the top width from 1.67. I might change that down to say 1.3 and hit enter, and that'll narrow that down there for us. We can also change the bottom width. I'll leave at 2.5. The height, I usually take this down to about 4 mil or so. You don't need a huge sprue on these things. The longer the sprue, the more metal you're going to spend. So hit F4. Hit 4 and hit enter, and that's going to reduce the height of that particular sprue there. And then all we need to do is hit enter, and there is our support for that piece there. Now, with the asiga, you could probably get away with just growing this as is, but it's my personal preference to support these regions here as well. I don't tend to support the claws here, like I said before, but these guys here I just do just to be safe. The tool that we want to use for that is called Support Ring. It's this one here, so we're going to click on that. and it'll give me, the command line will say pick a support anchor point on the sprue line, which is sitting at the bottom of the inside of the ring, and we want to kind of take that up for this particular ring about halfway. Left click once, and then just drag your mouse out, and I'm going to turn my snaps off. Now you've got an option here. At the moment it's only putting one support sprue here, but I'm going to turn mirror X on, and now it'll give me 2. If you have mirror Y on as well, it'll give you 4. Alright, so you know, it can really help quicken the process up. So I'm going to leave these 2 here, and put those there just like that. Left click once, and then what we're going to do before we exit out of the command is we're going to modify these, make them a little bit thinner. So we're going to hit enter, and then when that goes red, left click on it, and then we can drag it in, we can drag it out, whatever you want to do. I'm going to take that to about 0.7, and then the same for the bottom ones here, bring that down to about 0.7 and 0.7. 0.7 is the smallest size you can go for those particular supports. And then this one here, because you've mirror X'd and Y'd it, you only have to do this to one of these, so just left click one and just bring it down, and that'll modify all the others to 0.1 of a mil. When you're happy with everything there, simply hit enter, and that will set your sprues or your supports for you. The next step for this is we're going to select everything here, and we're going to use a tool that by itself costs about $10,000 but was included in Matrix 9 as complimentary, and it's found in the tools menu, and it's called mesh repair. It's this icon here. Click on that, and then in the command line make sure that delete input objects equals on. What that's going to do, if you've got that turned off, it's going to leave your original piece, which are all your poly surfaces here, and it will also create a mesh, which is what you need, over the top of it. So if you turn delete input objects on, it automatically gets rid of all your poly surfaces and just leaves the mesh there. So hit enter, and what that's going to do is it's going to repair that piece. Now this is really cool if you've got things like naked edges, if you haven't booleaned everything together, you know, all that really kind of cool stuff there. And what it will do is it will generate a mesh like this. Now this is a watertight mesh. It's ready for 3D printing. You don't have to do anything else to it. We can go here to check mesh, and if you get the first sentence saying this is a good mesh, it's all you need to worry about. All the rest of this stuff you don't need to worry about at all. If it says it's a good mesh, it's good. Close it down, select it, and then just go to File, Export, try that again, File and Export, and I'm going to take this to the desktop here and give it a name. So Jamie Shank, and hit enter. Alright, so we've done that. Let's bring out the setting. So we'll go to show, and we'll grab this guy here, and let's go into our utilities menu and use our center object tool. Center that right at F4, and let's just check to make sure that everything is centered, because sometimes some geometry can, you know, kind of take it out, and it's a little bit out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it across slightly, something like that will be fine. And they don't look like they're the same, so let's delete this guy here, and let's mirror that around F4, so at least they're all the same. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our perspective viewport, select everything there, and go back to our tools menu and select your 3D printing option. Go to the very first icon, show support regions, and click on add object. It's going to convert it all to grey. Anything that's red is recommending support. Now this center cylinder here for a sprue, or for a support and a sprue, I guess, that's okay, we can still use that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a tool called support base. Click on that, and the command line will ask us to select our object, so select that and hit enter. and that's going to create a support base for us, so just hit enter. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag this up just so that the support intersects our cylinder there. Something like that will be fine. If you can see it, it goes right through it. That's good. We're then going to use a tool that I tend to use only for settings and things like that, and you'll find it here called blend supports. We're going to click on the little arrow in the corner there and use the very first option called blend supports. Now it's going to ask you to pick a start point on the object, and the start point is going to be, say, here. Anywhere around there is fine. We're going to turn mirror X and mirror Y on, leave those on. The start diameter, you can take that down if you wish. I'm going to leave that at 0.3 and leave the end diameter at 0.3 as well. And then it's going to ask you to pick some other points. So we need to pick some points onto the support plate itself. So something like that there. And then you'll see if you move your mouse, you can go back up and then back down to the support plate and keep going back and forth. So back up and back down and there and there, and I guess you should be able to do that and hit enter. Alright, that should be okay. And that'll all grow nicely, believe it or not. The next thing we need to look at is these underrails here. Now, I wouldn't worry about supporting these side underrails. They're supported by these claws here. This one here is as well. It'll probably still grow, but if you really want to be safe and you're not 100% sure, just go down to this tool here, support, the very thin supports. Take the start diameter down to about, say, 0.1 and enter, and the end diameter down to 0.1 and enter. It's only going to be very thin, but that's okay. And turn your mirror X on and Y on. So you only have to do it once. Take it up into here. And that'll do. Alright, they will pop out really easily. There's no problem there at all. The next thing we need to do, if you really wanted to keep these circles here, then you could. I don't tend to, but we're going to go to this next one, the medium tapered supports. Select that one there. We're going to turn mirror X and mirror Y on, and you don't always turn these on either. I'm just turning them on for this particular piece, just to save some time. Start diameter, I'm going to put these at, say, 0.2, and the end diameter at 0.6, and hit enter. And then just simply go around and support these sections. And that'll just really help it, grow without issue. You won't have any remnants left in your tray or anything like that, which is really important. You just don't want remnants left in there because they'll damage the tray otherwise. Hit enter when you're done there, and then once you're happy with all of that, just check it over, make sure that there's nothing sticking through the bottom here, which there isn't. Select everything there and go to mesh repair. Make sure delete input objects equals on and hit enter, and it will go through its process. Okay, so now that that's finished with mesh repair, we can click on check mesh, and it says that it's a good mesh, so that's all good. We can close that down and we can select it, go to file and export. Make sure that you have the STL option turned on, and I want to save that to my desktop, so I'm just going to call that Jamie setting and hit enter. Alright, so now that they've exported, we're going to then open up our Asiga software, and the Composer software that is, and we're going to click on New, select our material that we want to use, and obviously the thickness that you're wanting to use. We're going to hit OK to that, and then we're going to add our models by clicking on the little plus spot box. So select your files, we're going to select Jamie setting and Jamie Shank and hit open. And I'm going to print 2 of each, so just grab that up, 2, and hit open. I'll bring those in, and then we can simply auto place those. Just hit OK or apply, and then close that down. And then what I tend to like to do is I like to manipulate these, so you can click on each one and just hold down your left mouse button. When you've got the green hand there, just bring that across. Same thing for this one here. We can rotate it around, say, and just drag that across to where we want it. This one here, I'm going to rotate that around as well. You don't have to do that too. And just going to drag that in. I just tend to like building in the center of the tray where possible. Alright, so once I've placed all of those, we're going to then build. So we're going to click on the green build button. It'll give you an estimated time, which we're going to click on next. I'm okay with that. And then you're going to get this message. Now, because you haven't created the supports in the Composer software, that's why you're getting this message. But you know that you've already created those supports, so you can just simply disregard it and just hit continue. And just go through the paces. So next, and you can give it a name. So I'm just going to call this Jamie. And you can hit send build. And once you've sent that build, then your printer will it'll show up on your printer, and you can hit print and off you go, and there shouldn't be any issues whatsoever with growing those particular pieces. So yes, it is a little bit more hands-on as far as, or in comparison I guess, to the auto support function that you've got through the Composer software. However, I personally find that if you're not doing 40 models a day, then it's not really a big deal, and it's in my opinion it's kind of a little bit more of an insurance to make sure that the pieces do grow correctly. So that's the way I tend to do it. I generally, anyone who's got Matrix, I generally recommend they do it that way as well, because you've got a little bit more control and you can place the supports pretty much where you want. Alright, I hope that helps.